Hey, it's Friday. Happy Friday, everybody. It's Blair and Barker. Sportsnet 590 fan of Sportsnet. To do ahead of tonight's 7:10 first pitch, the Blue Jays are in Cleveland to take on the Cleveland Guardians. Yariel Rodriguez will start for the Blue Jays tonight against Carlos Carrasco. We've not seen the lineup yet, so no, I don't know if Orelvis Martinez is starting. Tom Hamilton, the voice of the Guardians, joins us in the next hour. Melanie Newman, play-by-play broadcaster with the Baltimore Orioles, will be along as well. We'll ask her if we learned anything about the Orioles.
Best team in the American League.
Yeah. Given the way they handled that series. They handled that series in the Bronx. Mm-hmm. John Schneider, the manager of the Blue Jays, joins us at 4:30. Live from Cleveland for his regular weekly.
What's the biggest question you think we should ask?
Well, I need
Number
to,
one.
I need to see
uno.
I need to see the lineup first before we do that. 416-413-3959. That is the back leg line. Your chance to leave questions, comments, observations for Kevin Barker and myself. We will be going to the back leg line in a few more minutes. You still got time to get your calls in. We've got at least 10 operators lined up to handle your calls. 416, no one does that anymore. 416-413-3959. Name and location. S'il vous plaît.
Ooh.
What? I just felt like saying that a little bit today. So, Yariel Rodriguez, Kevin. What are you expecting from him?
I don't know. That's a $1 million question. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I would hope. This is just me. I would hope he continues to throw strike one. I mean, he was doing a decent job of that. It's just the quicker action. Like you don't need the at-bats to carry on. Like you need him to get ahead and put a dude away quick. I think that's why hopefully when he went down and was a little injured and tried to figure things out, I would think that they had him throwing more split fingers. That will help get a little bit quicker action. Get him through an inning a little bit quicker. Instead of the 20-pitch inning, it's the 17, 18-pitch inning. You're going an inning deeper, which that means John don't have to use an arm out of the pen he don't want to use. So I would think two things: quicker action, more split fingers. He does those two things. He'll probably give him a chance. And I don't want to say control the running game and all this stuff. I think that's a lot to ask. It is what it is. I just think it's about that. He's got good enough stuff. He can stuff a team to death. They're going to have some lefties in that lineup, so he's going to have to be good. Glove side will have to be good. That's into a lefty, and changing speeds. And, again, I think it's that split finger. He does have 5 pitches. That might be too many for him. We'll ask John about that. And
the split finger, though, is
it's a grip it and rip it. He ain't aiming that thing. He ain't, finessing it in there. You get it. I think that's the point. Is the quicker action is a big deal for him. You're wasting your stuff if you show it to him too much, and then the counts are, you're having 7 or 8 pitch at bats. It's just a waste of stuff. So quicker. Throw strike one, be efficient in action in 3 or 4 pitches, and because he has good stuff, he should be okay.
Now we talked yesterday to Mandy Bell of MLB.com about the Guardians and their really impressive home record, their record at Progressive Field. Does that matter to a team? Good home record? Does that matter to a team?
Which thing?
A team that the team at home. Does that matter?
Absolutely. They're 23-9.
I mean, you think they know they have a good
absolutely they do. I'm sure they're 23-9 at home because they're doing everything that they should be doing. I mean, that means their best players are being their best players, and they're pitching the ball the way they're supposed to be pitching. Now, obviously, their bullpen is good on the road and at home. That will help a ton. But I think that's, you feel comfortable coming home. The batter's box feels like it should be feeling. You know where to stand on the defensive side. You know where the sunspots are at, and you're just very, very comfortable. So I think they're playing as a team at home, maybe a little bit better than they are on the road. So absolutely, I mean, that'd give them something to look forward to. Everybody wants that, right? As a big league baseball player, you want something to look forward to. You want to gain a little confidence. You want to be able to go home. And when we were having the conversation, I think the crowd at home seems to be a factor for the Guardians.
Yeah, Mandy did mention that. Mandy did mention that.
Like they're showing up. So absolutely it does. When I was a big leaguer, I hated playing at home.
You hated playing at home.
I did. I got booed quite a bit at home. You know, there's a lot. It's like
this is Milwaukee.
Yeah, it's like the Vladdy effect. It's like the Bo Bichette effect. It's like me and you listening at the ninth inning when Vladdy strikes out the end of the game looking. Are they booing? It's that sort of thing, right? When you're not getting it done, you're not doing the things you're supposed to be doing, it's hard to come home. You know, the ball's not carrying the way you think it should be carrying. You hit a ball to right center you think you should get. You around first, you're holding your head down. You know, a lot of the times I think a lot of baseball players don't like to play at home. They like to go on the road. They like to get away from that. You know, it's a little bit easier not having to worry about your family as much on the road. So there's a lot comes into play with that, but seems like the Guardians got all that figured out. And pitching and defense and stealing bases, that travels.
So, again, we'll await the Jays lineup today. We are expecting, or it certainly sounded at least, as if Orelvis Martinez was going to start 2 of the 3 games this weekend.
Did he say that?
Yeah, and Dan Schulman came on and said that he expected him to start 2 of the 3 games. So, you know, you talked yesterday. Let's operate under the assumption he starts today or tomorrow. And you talked yesterday about all the days off and the impact that has on, especially a young guy who's used to playing every day, who has been playing every day at the AAA in a big swing.
Yep.
So how do you, knowing that, what does he do as part of his pregame prep tonight?
He don't know that.
What do they tell him to do?
They're not going to tell him anything. He's 22, Jeff. Like, you would think that the khakis are not going to overwhelm him with information. See-ball, hit ball, man. Like, you know, go up there, get your foot down on time. That's it. Be on time. If you're on time, let the talent and the bat speed and the energy that you're going to bring, you know, he's going to have anxiety and he's going to probably chase some things he shouldn't be chasing at some times. But you don't ever think his thing. Like, you don't tell him anything. It's like the Pete Walker thing. What we do when we talk about Pete Walker and he sees a pitcher for the first time, you get the heck out of the way. Don't touch him. Don't talk to him. Don't do any of that. Just what do you see? And then you can adjust and have a conversation, and whether it's positive or negative, and maybe push him in a direction that you would like to see him do certain things. But, I mean, please, Blue Jays, write his name in the lineup and don't talk to him. Please.
You're pretty clear about that.
Well, I was there. I've been there once. I'm speaking from experience. The less you talk to me, the more I have to think about. And now I can just go up and have a little bit of fun. And remember, Jeff, baseball's fun. It's supposed to be fun. And 22-year-olds are supposed to have fun at the big league level. Doesn't get any higher than this level. You know, you're playing against the best of the best. I mean, it ain't like the Guardians starting pitching is the best starting pitching in baseball. It ain't. I mean, sooner or later, they're going to throw you a cookie. If you're on time because you're having fun and you're not overthinking it, because you know, Barger seems to tell us he's got more power than Babe Ruth. So get that thing down the middle, man. Let that thing eat, dude. Don't overthink it. Hopefully that's what happens. You think that's it? It ain't happening, is it?
What?
That they're not going to overwhelm him with information, and you know, I'm sure they have their. Again, we've had this day where John is late or having those meetings to where, you know, he goes around to everybody and tells them this, that, and the other. I'm sure he's one of that. He's going to tell this, that, and the other too.
Yeah, no. The fact that, I mean, first of all, I would hope that they adopt your approach. The fact that they have gone out of their way to find a matchup for him would give me concern.
Sinker slider. All these dudes got that.
You know, that would indicate that
they ain't confident.
Well,
they don't think he should be here.
I mean, I don't know how to put it. I don't know how to put it any other way.
No, they're telling us that without telling us. Yes or no? Yeah. Boom.
Well, let's just put it this way. They're telling us that they don't think he's good enough that they can just push him out there and say, go swing.
You said it.
And it's, you know, it's interesting. Look at Addison Barger. How did he made his major league debut in the outfield, in left field. I don't think, had he played that position? No. I can't remember.
No.
So it's like, here, kid, go get him and just hang on for a minute. Now we're going to. And he's a lefty hitter, so I'm sure Martinez being a righty hit. But my understanding is that Addison Barger's here as a prospect, and Orelvis Martinez is here as a prospect. So I that confuses me a little bit. The fact that you would just that you would be so careful with this particular guy.
We should ask John these questions.
Well, we will ask John these questions.
I'd love to know the answer.
Have you got any questions for John? 416-413-3959 is the back leg line. Again, your opportunity to ask questions of Kevin and myself. We will go to the back leg line later on in the show. We may even do it in this particular segment, 416-413-3959. I'm looking at Yariel Rodriguez's numbers in the minors, a 1.33 ERA after 20 and a third innings with Buffalo this season. I mean, that doesn't really do a great deal for me. So if Yariel Rodriguez is able to come up and contribute as a starter, how do you see Bowden Francis's role playing out with this team?
Yeah, I think it's sort of like if they need him to go multiple innings, they'll give him that. If they need him to go bottom of the order, come back and have one up, down, I think they'll do that. I think they're going to use him in many different ways. I think he can simplify certain things that he's going to do against certain people. They'll try and put him in the right spot, but it sounds to me like they don't like Rodriguez sitting in the pen trying to get up, come in a game. They'd rather have Bowden Francis do that. So, I think it's maybe this will help Bowden throw a little bit harder. I think when he's throwing a little bit harder, he's more aggressive. The curveball, the slider's a little bit better. So, it's about not giving up homers. I mean, they are atrocious at giving up homers and
not hitting them.
Yeah, I mean that's not how you win baseball games.
Let's go to Bob in Toronto. He reached out in the back leg line.
In short, need to make a big splash between the end of this season and next season. And that is to signing a big name, such as Juan Soto. Seems out of the ordinary, but I think if they can bid the way they did for Ohtani, they can bid for Soto in the same way. And look at what Price did when he was added to the roster a few years ago. It made a big difference. Let's do it again.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm going to say that David Price also disappeared in the playoffs. I think he was put in the bullpen in the playoffs. The Troy Tulowitzki ad was way more important to my way of thinking than the David Price ad. So too was the Ben Revere ad, if you want to get down to it. But David Price David Price excited people. Here's the thing about the difference between Juan Soto and Shohei Ohtani. Yeah, first of all, do I think the Jays will look into Juan Soto? Yeah, I think they'll probably look into Juan Soto when a player like that becomes eligible as a free agent. I think it's just good business to do that. The business case for signing Shohei Ohtani is different than the business case for signing Juan Soto. Juan Soto's a great player. He's not selling any more cell phones. He's not selling anymore, right? I mean, the marketing oomph you get from Juan Soto, you're going to sell more tickets. It's going to make your team better. But just look at what Shohei Ohtani's done for the Dodgers since he's been there. I mean, it's like every week we hear another announcement of a marketing agreement with a Japanese company. Shohei Ohtani is a one-man economic environment changer for a team. Juan Soto is not that. So, and that's why, there was this flawed idea out there that, okay, the Jays were willing to go to whatever it was to get Shohei Ohtani. Why didn't they just take that money and sign Bo and Vladdy to a long-term deal? Well, the business case for signing Bo or Vladdy to a long-term deal isn't as dramatic as the business case for signing Shohei Ohtani. Like, we need to move beyond that. Shohei Ohtani was a unicorn. He's the only guy you're ever going to see anybody in baseball pay close to. I mean, I know David Sampson would say it's less than $500 million, actually, but he's the only guy in baseball, only player in baseball we're ever going to see where somebody is going to even think about giving him $700 or $800,000 or $800 million or $1 billion. We're just not going to see that. So I think that's where the big difference is.
Yeah, I think it takes two to tango, too. I don't even know if Juan Soto would want to come to Canada. Do you think? I mean, I guess it'd be the highest bidder.
Juan
but,
Soto,
but, I mean, the two New York teams, I mean, you would think, well, at least one of them.
he'll go where he's going to make the money. I would think he'll go where he's going to make the most money.
Yeah, absolutely. Wouldn't you?
I mean, don't forget.
Absolutely.
Don't forget, he's a guy who, we need to keep reminding people this. A lot of players who come from the Dominican Republic, I mean, they've traveled on passports before. Moises Alou tells us. Crossing the border is no big deal to them.
I guess. I mean, it seems to me like he's the perfect guy to play in New York. I would think that guy for the Mets is going to, give him a blank check. Who knows? I mean, look, would it make their team better? Yeah. Would that be the final piece you would need for them to make a run at it? Absolutely not. Like they need a lot of pieces in the offseason, so it's interesting.
According to the Blue Jays official Twitter account, I have not seen the lineup, but they have a picture of Orelvis Martinez. And they say he's making his MLB debut tonight at second base.
There you go.
Batting eighth. So again, that's from the Blue Jays, and that just moved 6 minutes ago from the Blue Jays official Twitter account. And let me just make sure that was the Blue Jays. Yes, that was the Blue Jays official Twitter account. So there you go. That we'll await to see the rest of the lineup.
Carrasco, sinker slider, don't throw a bazillion miles an hour. I mean, I guess if you're looking for a pocket.
George in Toronto.
George.
This team is given the reason their run differential is so bad is not just because they can't score runs, but they also can't prevent runs. I think only 5 teams in the American League have allowed more runs than the Blue Jays. So this idea of run prevention is more of a marketing term than a reality. My question is about George Springer, and it's not a rhetorical question. I genuinely don't know if it's all over for him because he's not that old. He's only 35. And he's actually, when you watch him, he's in good shape. I mean, he's good defensively. He runs the bases well. I think he leads the team in stolen bases. So is there a way he can adjust in the way that pitchers adjust as they get older and he's no longer swinging for the fences? Maybe he's hitting it, I don't know, hitting it the other way or something. Is it a refusal to adjust? Anyway, appreciate your thoughts on both points.
Turn it over to you, Mr. Barker.
Yeah, I think it's twofold. I think you need to stop playing him every single day. I think that would help him. And when you get older, you might be at your best in small sample sizes. I think that's the first thing. Maybe if you're not playing as much in the outfield, maybe your bat's a little bit quicker. I think he's middle of the pack in bat speed. If you're into that kind of thing, I mean, I had somebody look that up. I think that's where he's at. Look, the adjustment kind of thing. He's a very aggressive swinger. He likes to, and he thinks he can swing at everything and put everything into play at a high rate, at high velocities. Well, the last year and a half, that hasn't been taking place. So I don't know if you can teach an old dog new tricks, Jeff. I just don't know if that's the case. I think that's why, again, I've said this, grown up in the room, raise your hand and say, maybe our team's a little bit better. We have other options who can play right, who is younger, who's left-handed.
Yep.
That we could stick in the lineup. We could play this dude 3 or 4 days a week. Everybody'd be happy, right? Your team would be happier. You might be scoring more runs. George might be a better player because of that. Why not? You tried everything else. You moved him down in the order. Again, I just think that the stats that he has against left-handed pitching is atrocious. That's the one tell is how do lefties trying to get righties out, Jeff? Fastballs in. Fastballs in are the thing, right? The older you get, the more you have to cheat a little bit because of whatever. Just something ain't working the way it used to work. So, again, I just don't know if walking up to George and going, hey, don't do that. He's made $160-ish million doing it one way. It's hard to teach that old dog new tricks.
Yeah, see, I still get back to the point I made early in the year. I don't think it's a good sign when a player puts together his healthiest year and his numbers are the worst they've been. I mean, that's to me, that's a message. George Springer was healthy last year. His numbers were not good. They were, in some cases, career worst.
I'll ask you, Jeff, when's the last time you saw him take velocity, pull it in the air with authority?
No, and the thing is, keep in mind that was a point of emphasis is spring training. That's what we were told.
Yeah.
Was George was going to pull the ball more. I mean, this wasn't just nonsense. This was a point of emphasis. He said it.
Yeah.
This was a point of
Schneider
emphasis in spring training.
Yeah.
This is what I'm working on. This is what he is working on. And it has not come through. Now, the caller, George, is right. You don't think it's... No. The caller, George, is right.
I hoped it was. But
the caller, George, is right in that you watch him play the outfield. You watch him run the bases. It's not as if he's physically broken down.
No.
That's not the case. You see George Springer standing in the on-down. George Springer's a specimen.
Yeah.
George Springer is a specimen.
Yeah.
And that concerns me even more.
Yeah, it's almost
right?
It's almost like when he's stealing bases, he's happy he's not hitting. When he's playing defense, he's happy he's not hitting. When he's hitting, he's happy at just like it's an optics thing, right? Everybody's been there. Like it's when you're searching for something and it ain't working out. Like I'm sure whatever he's doing off the field is on point and he's hitting balls and it's going exactly where it's supposed to be going.
The one thing I want to say, I'm never going to sit here and say that he's not trying or that he's not working hard.
How
or
would
anything
we
like
say that anyway? We're not behind the scenes.
We're not behind the scenes,
no,
but
that's
that's also not what we're led to believe. It's got to be hard.
Sitting 196.
I said this the other day. When you look at what his career was, and where he is now, at some point, yes, he makes a lot of money. He's a professional athlete. It's the get-it-done league. I get all that. But at some point, man, I do have a certain amount of empathy for a guy who it's just not there.
Yeah,
I mean, I do.
I'm not in that camp.
Well, I'm sorry. I do. I tend to have a certain amount of empathy
it's
for
a big
guy
boy
like
league.
Yeah.
Nobody cared when I got sent to Double-A.
Let's call her before we take a break. No name from Kelowna, BC. I hate it. By the way, leave a name and location.
We're not going to play you.
Yeah, but we're going to play no name anyway.
Yeah, why not?
Kev, kudos for putting up with Blair, former Winnipegger here, living in West Kelowna, nicely retired in the sun. It seems this team still can't score runs, and it looks like home runs ain't going to be what's going to work for them. So when we get a leadoff double, I don't care who's coming to the bat. Why don't we try and bunt the guy over to third base, at least with a sac fly? You got a couple of cracks to get a run in. If you could do that maybe 4 or 5 times a game, you might get 4 or 5 runs. Small ball is the only way they're going to score any runs. What do you think? Have a great summertime.
No name. I appreciate that.
I mean, I think they're, I don't, but I think they're probably, again, I used this line before. I don't know if you can get smaller balls than the small ball they're playing right now. I mean, I'm sorry. People are saying this to me is, I'll put it this way. If John Schneider bunts 3 times in a game, he's probably going to be fired. If he bunts 4 times in a game, then I think he should be fired. That's just the way I'm looking at it. But go ahead. You answer.
I got no answer. You lost me at how small the.
I mean, I'm just not a.
Look, not everybody's going to do. There's no money in it. I'm sorry. You can't get an entire lineup to buy into it. I'm sorry. No name. I'm with you. Sometimes,
and I don't even know if a lot of these. Let's be honest. I don't know if they can bunt.
No, they can. I mean, I'm sure they could if you said you give them a little bit of advance and have them go in and figure it out. I mean, they're good. They're good enough athletes to figure it out. But you ain't. Most of them dudes, you ain't asking to do that. I mean, bottom of the order, they're going to do what you tell them to do, and then there's the top of the order. Like, you get at the top of the order, you do different things than other people at the bottom of the order do. I mean, it's just, and again, there's no money in it. Like, I know people don't like to hear that, but it's facts.
Well, it's true. You can't go into, I guarantee you, if you go into arbitration.
I bunted 42 times. How much money I get?
And your agent says I bunted, exactly. I guarantee you that isn't
I mean, to
going
win
be.
a World Series, I can maybe 4 games under.
We have a puff of white smoke from John Schneider's office. The Blue Jays lineup is out. Schneider in left, Turner DHing, Vladdy at first, Varsho in center, Jansen behind the plate, Kevin, your boy George Springer in right field, Barger at third base, Orelvis at second, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa at shortstop.
No Clement or Horowitz.
No Clement or Horowitz. Anyhow, that is the Jays lineup again. Schneider, Turner, Guerrero, Varsho, Jansen, Springer, Barger, Martinez, IKF. No
well,
Clement, no Horowitz.
I'm excited to watch Orelvis. I mean, I've heard a lot about him and the changes he's made, and I want to see it. I want to see if he's got electric bat speed and can lay off a slider down and away, because he's going to get it from the veteran. Carrasco's going to toy with him.
Well, let me ask you this before we take a break very quickly, because I know John Schneider's joining us. So if you're IKF and you're at shortstop tonight, you got a guy at second base in Martinez who's still learning the position. You've got a guy at third base, Barger. Most people seem to think Barger, when he makes this team, will be an outfielder. If you're IKF, and I know you're going to say that you got a lot of smart people that are going to be positioning these guys, but if you are IKF at shortstop, knowing that, does that change what you, not how you prepare, but does that change your mindset going into the game?
Absolutely not. I mean, it's an individual game. I know nobody likes to hear that either. It is. You take care of you, I'll take care of me. Like John put you at third for a reason. John put you at second for a reason. Catch the freaking ball. I'll catch the balls I'm supposed to catch. You catch the balls you're supposed to catch. There's no like, oh, you can't catch it. I'll run over there and catch it for you, just so you have a spot in the lineup that can come up and hit. I mean, listen, there's no more shifts anymore.
Could have had Barger and right, Clement at third. Going to anyhow. John Schneider is manager of the Toronto Blue Jays. He'll join us next. We'll ask him that question.
Horowitz gets on base all the time.
It's Blair and Barker on Sportsnet 590, The Fan, and Sportsnet. All right, welcome back to Blair and Barker. 7:10 will be the first pitch tonight at lovely Progressive Field in Cleveland.
It is a nice
the
place.
Jays open a 3-game series against the Cleveland Guardians. A reminder, we'll be along to do Blue Jays talk following the game. I think it's
winning edition
tonight. I feel that.
Orelvis is going to walk it off. Oh, he can't, but he get the game winning.
I was going to say, if he walks it off, that'd be quite a story. Let's bring in the manager of the Toronto Blue Jays, the skipper, John Schneider, joining us from Cleveland, the underrated road city, Cleveland, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
In my opinion.
The stadium's nice. Don't go any further than that.
Yeah. John, what gives you the confidence that Carlos Carrasco is the right dude for Orelvis to debut against?
I mean, for one, we got to get him in. You know what I mean? We got to get him playing a little bit. But I think just kind of, he's been such a really good pitcher, a great pitcher. The majority of his career. He's gonna kind of try to live on the edges. We just saw him, pretty familiar with him. You don't want to say overpowering stuff. Every pitcher is in the league for a reason, but feel like Orelvis's skill set matches up pretty well with him. Hopefully he can get him in the zone and showcase that power that he's got. But I think you can look for him to be in the lineup for at least a couple games this weekend.
John, if the people that haven't seen Orelvis hit, explain his swing to us.
Yeah, I mean, it's for one, it looks right. You know what I mean? It's like off the bat, it comes off hard, it comes off different. And big leg kick, I think that he has the ability to adjust to fastballs at multiple spots of the zone. That's something that we talk about with a lot of our minor league hitters. And he can definitely hit the fastball. And what's been his area of focus is just obviously strike zone command. When he's swinging at pitches in the zone, he hits it. It reminds a lot of people of a guy like Vlad. You don't want to really compare, but they're different. But I think that the way that he can impact the baseball is something that is hard to replicate. So it's going to be exciting to see him out there.
How about his defense? Second, third, confidence-wise, his throws. Does one side scream better than the other side? How do you feel about that?
I think second base is probably where he feels most comfortable right now, just because of the amount of time he spent there this year. Third base is an option too. Different sides of the diamond, a little bit different, but I think we're very comfortable with him at either spot. I've been saying a lot of this year about just him getting used to plays that aren't routine, whether it's a cutoff and relay, ball coming in. Kind of just where to be on certain plays that he's gotten better at and will continue to get better at while he's here. But I think his defense is definitely, he's done a really good job of working with Casey and with Murph in AAA, to try to catch up to his bat, really. And but feel confident with him at second and at third.
John, is it more difficult to position a guy at second base from the bench?
How do you mean?
Like in terms of just in terms of positioning, before pitches and that. Yeah, in-game positioning. Is it any different at second than third?
I don't think so. Sorry, I didn't understand that.
That's all right.
I think, we do such a good job of kind of defining where straight up is, where a pull, hitter is going to be, slight pull, things like that. Carlos and Gil are really good at that. So I think that's not really an issue. And again, it's the same system he's been working with in Buffalo that we're using here.
With Uriel tonight, expectations for him, and will we see more of that good old split finger?
Expectations are hopefully, this team makes a lot of contact. We know that, hopefully he's making good pitches and turning that contact into outs. And around 80, 85 pitches is kind of what we're looking at for him tonight, just as he kind of continues to build up a little bit. Split will be a big pitch against the lefties, I think. It's a really good pitch, probably better than what we thought it was going to be at this point in his transition over here. And if that's on with that heater slider, it's a pretty good mix, but it's going to come down to executing. These guys can do damage at the top with Jose and with Naylor, and the rest of the guys are a pain in the ass. They're putting the ball in play, so he's got to make good pitches.
Yeah, quick action. That's what you want deeper in the game. Makes your job easier. Okay, the question I think sort of is twofold a little bit. When your team on the pitching side is giving up a bunch of homers, your team on the offensive side is not hitting a bunch of homers. Which one of those I'm sorry?
Tough recipe.
It is.
Right there.
Which one of those is easier to fix? And this might be an impossible question to answer, but if anybody can do it, it's you.
Well, I appreciate that confidence there, Kev.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, hitting you're reacting to mistakes, right? So I think you can't do anything let the pitcher throwing the ball. I think it's easier to limit damage from a pitching standpoint. And we all have scouting reports. We all have tendencies. It just comes down to making every single pitch a quality pitch. It's going to happen where pitchers make mistakes. The best pitchers in the game make mistakes. It's just kind of how you limit that, And I think on the flip side, from an offensive standpoint, you're looking for mistakes. Certain pitchers are going to give you multiple throughout the course of an at-bat. Certain guys are going to give you one, and you can't miss it. So being that the hitter's reacting to what he's seeing, I think is definitely more, you can probably expedite it a little bit if you're talking from a pitching standpoint and, not trying to just blow stuff by guys, not trying to just get things in the zone, in the box. You got to execute it properly, and usually it's a good outcome.
John, with all the analytics and video out there, is there still something about seeing the same team so close to the last time you saw them? Is that still a factor in the game?
Yeah, I mean, it's about adjustments now. You know what I mean? We just saw Carrasco. We just saw Lively. Didn't see McKenzie, but it's kind of a cat and mouse game. It's what are you going to do differently than what you did last time? From an offensive standpoint, I think that the information that everyone has, both sides, us and them, is so in depth. I think it's up to the pitchers to make some adjustments, and whether you had success or you didn't, there's probably going to be a little bit of tinkering, and it's which team can kind of adjust on the fly the quickest. It is interesting when you play teams. We're playing Boston right after these guys just got done with them, and it is interesting to kind of see what tendencies were there and which ones are going to be there. This series, these next 3 games, and the next 3 after that. But it's I think a lot of it comes down to the starting pitcher and kind of how they're going to go back and forth from what they did to what they're trying to do now.
John, now that you have other options, is it getting harder to pencil George's name in the lineup on an everyday basis?
George is, there's obviously other options, and something that we've talked about over the course of the year, even going back to spring training, is, George is going to need some days off. He's going to need some days off his feet. It's not tough to put George Springer in the lineup. That may get you 100 more phone calls when I get off of this Zoom call, with people disagreeing with me. And I get that, Georgie gets that. And for a guy that's been as good as he has been, we're counting on George to be a productive player. And it's not just him, man. It's a lot of guys. It's not just on our team, it's around the league. And it's kind of a weird situation that a lot of teams are in. And for us to kind of get rolling, George is going to have to be a part of it. Again, it's not saying, okay, George, we need you to carry us for a week or 10 days, and everyone is back on the George Springer bandwagon. It's him being productive, and it's Vladdy being productive, JT being productive, Bo being productive when he's back, and everyone kind of doing their part. So when you're a superstar player like George, and you've got the accolades that he has over the course of his career, it's easy to kind of, focus in on a guy who's grinding a little bit, but what people don't see is the conversations that are being had with myself and him and the hitting department and him and the work that he's doing, so all we have is confidence in George Springer, and he feels it, he feels the pressure, he feels where he's at, and hopefully he feels the confidence from us. So I guess to answer your question, it's you got to make the best decision that you can. Some days it's going to be George, some days it's not going to be George. But in order for us to do what we want to do, the majority of the time it's going to involve George.
Yeah, that's fair. You mentioned Vladdy. Vladdy sometimes has those why at bats. Why did you swing at that? Like there's some of those at bats with runners on base and a runner standing at second. And John, you've seen it. He swings at the sinker. That's 3 feet in off the plate. How do you get him off of those kind of at-bats and more back into that? When he went through that little stretch, it was taking that, getting into a leverage count and just leaning on stuff. How do you get him back into that and not so much of those why at-bats?
Sure. Understanding that it's going to happen. You know what I mean? I mean, we can sit here and tell, if you're hitting in the box, it's like, okay, Kev, you're facing Brian Bayo. He's going to throw you sinkers away, change-ups away. Leave it alone. Look for something close to you, and over the course of a game, you're going to deviate from that plan, and you're going to chase a little bit. It happens to everyone. I think the next step for Vlad is to kind of limit those. When he was going through May, and he's putting quality at bat after quality at bat together, whether it's a walk, a hit, a home run, a double, that's what he's doing. That's what all great hitters do. When you're game planning for some of the big names in the league, some of the big names in the game, you're trying to limit those mistakes. You're trying to stay out of the middle of the zone. Really good hitters, they're not budging, and I think it just takes a really disciplined approach. It takes constant reminders, and, sometimes it's not going to work out, when you're playing every single day, but it's something we talk about all the time, and I think Vladdy is so talented. It can be enticing to swing at a lot of things because he can hit a lot of things. And same could be said about Bo sometimes. But the more you talk about it, the more you see him do it and get a positive result out of it. Hopefully it continues to carry over.
John, in your opinion, because I'm not in the dugout in game, do you think your lineup as a whole consistently is good enough at making in-game adjustments at a quality level? Like, guy gets you out one way, one at bat, he ain't going to do that again in the next at bat. Do you think your lineup is doing a good enough job at adjusting in game?
I think we're doing a better job now than what we were earlier in the year, and I still think we could be a lot better at it. It's tendencies are such a big thing, right? And what percentage you're going to throw a pitch in a certain count in a certain location. It's almost information overload at times,
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're doing a better job of it. And again, you could have all the information in the world, and that's going back to Wednesday. Bayo's got a good sinker, and the thing was really kind of running a little bit more than sinking on Wednesday. And it takes everyone to A, notice that, and B, make adjustments to it. So I think we are better at it. I still think we can be way better at it, because pitchers are so good these days, and pitchers are going to try to exploit something that you're not adjusting to, or trying to exploit something you're not consistently hitting hard. So there's definitely room for improvement there. And especially with some of the young guys that are coming up right now, and they're kind of going through it a little bit, but I think it's definitely trending in the right direction, and something that we're focusing on every single day.
Mm-hmm.
John, what difference are you seeing in Addison Barger now compared to the Addison Barger we saw earlier? And you've also got a guy at third base, I don't need to tell you, Ernie Clement, who is coming off a pretty good homestand. How do you balance the development you want to see from Addison at that position, but also the fact that Ernie has been a pretty good offensive contributor?
Yeah, I mean, two-part answer.
Two questions, yeah.
What we've seen from Addy is he's a little bit more under control. It's a violent, it's aggressive swing. He plays with his hair on fire. But I think kind of being up here before has kind of given him a little bit of a kind of a deep breath and understand that he can perform here. And you see him hitting some balls hard. You see him getting to some balls that he was getting to in the minor league. So I think just being a little bit more comfortable has been the biggest thing for him offensively. And in terms of balancing it, it's, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, we're going to try to develop in the big leagues. That happens kind of naturally, I think, just with the coaching staff and with the players. But it is a fine line to where, yeah, it's hard to ignore that when Ernie has been in there, he's been a little bit of a spark for us. He's made really good adjustments after the first month of the season, and he's usually helping us win in some way, shape, or form when he's in there. On top of that, we want to get these guys in positions to succeed, whether it's Spence, whether it's Addy, Orelvis. So it's a fine line. I'm not going to run guys out there and just say, hey, here's 4 at-bats. I hope you get the good reps in and get better for tomorrow. Mm-hmm. We don't have time. We don't have time for that, But it's a fine line between saying who can help us win tonight, who's going to have the best chance to help us, and at the same time not ignoring what guys that have been here have been doing. So that's kind of where we're at. There's definitely difficult decisions every single day when it comes to who's going to be where. And, it's a little bit of a balancing act, but hopefully the development happens before the game, and the practice, and their work, and the discussions, and the performance is what's making the decision.
How much does it help you with IKF being the shortstop, being able to put Barger at third and Orelvis at second base? Just the experience factor.
Yeah, I think both him and Bo do a good job of communicating. Izzy's probably a little bit more animated when it comes to the in-game communication. But I think it's nice to have guys that have been in those positions at the big league level for a good period of time when you have, Addy on one side and Orelvis on the other. Shortstop's the quarterback of the team in the infield. I think they both do a really good job of it. And, it's nice to have a little bit of a coach on the field in either one of those guys in the middle of the diamond.
Barrios back-to-back starts against the Guardians. What's the biggest challenge with that? Who do you think has the biggest advantage? And will he have to make a change? I know there's a bunch of lefties, the way they run, all those things, and it is Barrios. I understand that. But there's got to be a little bit of I don't want to say hesitance about you, just game planning. How tough is that going back-to-back against the same team?
It's tough. Yeah, we're gonna open format. No, I'm kidding. I think
they don't do that. Just don't do that.
Come on, let me get some controversy.
We're getting 100 calls. Yeah.
No, I take Ozzy up against anyone right now.
Yeah.
I think what he did do, he threw the cutter more to lefties last time, and it was for foul balls. It wasn't for weak contact. And I think putting that in their head opens up the changeup. It opens up the backdoor breaking ball. It opens up the front door two-seamer. Everything. So I'm really confident in his turn here. He's so athletic and he's so damn good when it comes to executing it in the game. I know him and Pete are going to have a solid game plan going in, but I mean these guys are tough. I think the biggest thing we want to see is probably that cutter into lefties, resulting in weak contact as opposed to foul balls. And if he's executing his changeup, it opens up everything else for him against left-handed hitters.
Yeah.
John, you've been really gracious with your time today, man. Thanks for this. Appreciate it.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, you bet, guys.
Take care.
Good luck, man.
Go get him.
All right. Thanks, guys. Talk soon.
John Schneider, manager of the Toronto Blue Jays. 7:10 will be the first pitch. As the Jays take on the Cleveland Guardians. Carlos Carrasco on the mound.
Yeah.
For the Guardians. Yadiel Rodriguez.
What do you think? What do you think his comments were with George Springer? Do you think people listening to that will like that? Like that's, or do you think they're at the point now where they don't care what? I mean, I think there's got to be a little that what you're going to get when you write his name in the lineup. Is that what it is? I think they're aware of it. They're aware of the days that it needs to be taken off, and
yeah, what the hell, the managers got the guys back, and
can't argue that.
It would be interesting if they. And this is coming from a guy who I don't talk about payroll or salary or anything like that. But I will say this. It would be interesting to know if this was the same approach they'd be taking with George Springer if he had a year and a half left in his contract compared to 2.5 years left in his contract. This may be an example of one of those times where the contract is kind of is hovering over the decision. I mean, I will say this. I will give John credit from being consistent when it comes to being asked about George Springer, because you know as well as I do, he gets asked about it every day.
Yeah. I thought long and hard about how to ask him in a different way.
I mean, look,
I'm not sure I did or not, but I tried.
Well, it's obvious what's going on. And there's only so many ways that I think John can answer that question. I mean, John, no manager's going to come out and say, yeah, the guy stinks, but he's making so much money, I got to put him in the lineup. I mean, nobody's going to do that. You know, and the other thing people need to remember, and this is something I'm sure John's aware of this, one of the reasons that Charlie Montoyo didn't work out was there was a sense that he did not necessarily do a great job of backing his guys. Now,
on the pitching side.
On the pitching side.
Yeah.
That was a conversation. I mean, it was a conversation.
With many.
And I'm sure John is aware of the fact that he has to do as much as he can to kind of keep this group together. And, you know, the other thing to keep in mind is nobody spends as much time around George Springer, other than maybe Mrs. Springer, than John. So John knows what buttons to push with what player. I can't put it any other way. And I think in this case, he's managing a whole hell of a lot of stuff. And I'm not certain another manager, I don't think another manager would do it any differently. I really don't. I know there are people that are saying, Jeff, come on, a guy like Bruce Bochy is going to he's going to go in there and say, to hell with that, I'm playing this other guy. Maybe. But I'm not entirely certain there aren't a lot of other managers out there who wouldn't be handling this the same way. And again, you know, the caller George made an interesting point. He is playing elite defense. It's not like he is a broken down physical specimen. And I can see where that, coupled with the fact that I'm sure their analytics people are seeing something that nobody else is seeing. You know, I think we can always ask the question. It's always going to be a talking point, but I think John Schneider's answer today is what his answer was a week ago. It's what his answer was 2 weeks ago. It's what his answer is going to be 2 weeks down the road if George Springer's still in the lineup and he's hitting 196. I don't know. I don't know where else he can go with it. I don't know what else he can ask. I don't know what else you can make of it. It's a long answer, but that's kind of where I am in it. And it's, it just seems to me that there's a lot going on with that decision.
Yeah, they're giving up a ton of homers. They're not hitting a ton of homers. And then you got to worry about the guys that are not hitting the homers, the guys that are giving up the homers. Like it's just not one. I think to your point, it's just not one person. But again, it is very hard when you got a bunch of dudes with OPS is under 600.
It is.
And Vladdy looks the way Vladdy looks. Now, again, I did think of Vladdy the way you want to think of Vladdy. Vladdy's a superhuman. Like, I've met Vladdy. I've talked to Vladdy many, many times. He's impossible not to root for, but he's not having a good year. I'm sorry, he's just not. And I tried to say that in the nicest way I could say that to John. John said it exactly the way it was supposed to be said. Yeah. It needs to get better. Like, plain and simple, it needs to get. His at-bats are some of the times look like I used to look. Very anxious. Very like I ain't been there before. Very like I swing. I made up my mind I'm swinging at this, and no matter where that thing's at, I'm swinging at it. That's not an approach. That's not an approach with guys that you talk about the way we have been talking about. Now, we've tapered that down. we no longer talk about Vladdy the way we used to talk about Vladdy. But bottom line is, if he don't get better.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got 7 homers and 30 steaks.
I will say this. I will say this before we break. I will say this. George Springer is an easy target. He's an easy target.
I mean, he's hitting $196, Jeff.
Tom Hamilton is the voice of the Cleveland Guardians, and you will hear the voice of the Cleveland Guardians next right here on Sportsnet 590 The Fan and Sportsnet. All right, welcome back to Blair and Barker on Sportsnet 590 The Fan and Sportsnet. 416-413-3959 is the back leg line. We're going to end up going back to the back leg line later. Ooh, you okay?
Yeah, I just had to scoot up.
Okay. Just a little worried about you there.
That coffee's got a little extra gear in it today.
Yeah, coffee was different today, man.
It's good. I told you, it tastes better when it's free.
Yes. Everything's better when someone else paid for it. Isn't that right, Barker?
Well, I mean, things are free in Toronto.
Yeah.
Rubbing 2 nickels together.
Who paid for the coffee today?
I know you did, buddy.
7:10 first pitch tonight. Yariel
She's
Rodriguez
creaking that
against
wallet up.
Carlos Carrasco. The rest of the pitching matchups, Jose Berrios against Ben Lively and Yusei Kikuchi against Tristan McKenzie. That is, of course, Saturday and Sunday.
2 out of 3.
It is a 7:10 first pitch. Be nice. Jays are 4 games under 500.
Wait, I say the Jays were winning 2 out of 3? So sorry. Yeah. I mean, that McKenzie one's not going to be an easy get. And Carrasco, I think they can get him. That after Carrasco, it's a tough get.
Berrios and Ben Lively?
I mean, Berrios never gets any run support. And
That's
McKenzie's, he's not been pitching well. He's got to, have a little urgency.
How about the manager playing with fire by joking that he was going to use an opener for Berrios? That was the joke. Let's bring in Tom Hamilton. He is the voice.
He's my favorite too.
Of the rampaging Cleveland Guardians. Mr. Hamilton, thank you so much for joining us. How come this team doesn't lose at home? I know it's a good team. I believe me, we've seen it in person. It is a good team, but they're 23-9 at Progressive Field? That's really impressive.
But, usually most teams are better at home. They've pitched a little bit better at home. But, I think bottom line is this has just been a good ball club, home and road. It's not really a ball club, guys, that's built for a particular park. They're athletic, they're aggressive, and so, that plays pretty much anywhere. Mm-hmm. They're also a ball club that doesn't rely on the home run ball. Now, last year, this was the worst home run hitting team in the game. And, this year, they're pretty much top third in Major League Baseball as far as home runs. I think that's been the biggest change. But nonetheless, they're still a ball club that's got a dominant bullpen. That's been the strong suit of this ball club. And, they're scoring 5 runs a game this year, up a run a game from a year ago, because they've hit for more power, not necessarily just home runs, but doubles. And I think it's also, as we have seen, with your ball club down through the years and now this ball club, it's a maturation process. And I think 2 years ago they surprised a lot of people, including myself, in that they won the division. And then last year they took a step back. And you see that a lot with young ball clubs. And I think now they really feel like they belong. And, we'll see. The big concern is starting pitching, but I think home or road, this is a ball club that's pretty darn good.
Tom, how do you get Stephen Kwan out?
You hope he takes the day off. I mean, today he's DHing. That's a quasi day off. It is incredible, guys. Yeah. I mean, he missed 4 weeks with a hamstring injury, and since he's come back, he's hit safely in every ball game, which would be 14 games. And, he's hitting 500 in those 14 games, and he doesn't have enough at-bats to qualify yet. But the fact that, we're near the tail end of June and he's still hitting 396 is remarkable. Guys, he never strikes out. Mm-hmm. I mean, he struck out yesterday. That was the first time in 40-some at-bats that he had struck out. But he has more walks than strikeouts, which is a rarity in today's game. And he's such a good 2-strike hitter. In a lot of ways, I know they're different players, but there are a lot of similarities, I think, in his approach in Luis Arraez, the longtime Minnesota Twin, who then got traded to Miami, who's now in San Diego. If you want to date yourself, and I'm not comparing, but guys like Rod Carew and guys of that nature that, Tony Gwynn, that could put the bat on the ball with 2 strikes, could hit home runs if the need was there or the pitch count was in their favor. But he's a throwback, and I think he's the best leadoff hitter in the game because he also sees so many pitches, guys, which really helps everybody else that hits behind him.
Yeah.
Tom, when you watch this team play and you look at how well-structured they are offensively, and I think of what this team does with runners in scoring position, all the stuff you talked about, is there kind of an architect here of the team's offensive philosophy, a particular coach? Maybe it's the GM. Yeah. I don't know.
It's a good question. I think it's all of the above, not to try to cop out on you, but it is an approach. They have been, pretty, I don't want to say stubborn, but they have been pretty rigid in who they go out and draft and who they sign. They look for guys that make contact. We don't have a lot of natural power hitters. We certainly have a chance to get one with the first pick in the draft here in a few weeks. And, be interesting to see which way they go with that pick. I still think we could use another power hitter. I think we have an awful lot of guys that have the same approach. You still have to hit the ball out of the ballpark come October. That's the one thing that I don't think has changed in the game. It is hard in playoff baseball because you're facing the best pitching. You're not going to string together 5-6 hits in an inning. You need somebody to hit the ball out of the yard. But their approach this year has been a little bit more along the lines of don't just be happy with making contact. Make contact to do damage. Early in the count, when the count is in the hitter's favor, look to get a pitch you can drive and do damage with. Don't look just to make contact and maybe hit a little flare or hit a weak fly out. Try to do something that you can, do damage with until you get to 2 strikes and then get back into that contact mode. But I think the other thing, too, it's a byproduct of the organization and its revenue. I mean, let's face it, guys, the most expensive commodities out there in the free agent market are starting pitching and power hitters. Mm-hmm. And you better be able to develop them, or you better have a philosophy on the kind of hitter you're going to try to develop, because this club isn't going to go out and be able to buy a power hitter or be able to go out and buy a front of the rotation guy. They've got to come up with those on their own.
Tom, the Guardians bullpen is first in ERA, as you well know, first in average against. Who is the second most important guy out of the pen?
Ooh.
We know who the first one is. Who's the second?
Yeah. You always build your bullpen from the 9th inning backwards.
Yeah.
Man, that's a great question. I'll tell you, to me, he's emerging as that guy, and it's the rookie out of the Vancouver area, Cade Smith. Mm. I mean, I don't think we have had a better rookie pitcher in my time that I can remember. Now, we had a kid by the name of Julian Tavares that was incredible out of our bullpen when we went to the World Series in 1995. But, I mean, Cade Smith, I think, could be a closer in the not-too-distant future. Boy, if you put me in a position where I had to name somebody, he is certainly the guy that comes to mind, along maybe with Hunter Gaddis. But again, as you guys know, especially this year, for the first time in a long time, we don't have a lot of starting pitching. We have no depth in the rotation. We're not getting length out of the starters like we have in the past. So this bullpen has been used as much as any bullpen in the game, which does cause you concern when you look ahead to August and September. So it truly is a deep bullpen, and it has to be because of the amount of innings they've been called upon.
What have you learned about Stephen Vogt as the season has gone on?
You know what? There are a lot of similarities, I think, to the guy that was here for 11 years in Tito Francona. And that is they don't take themselves too seriously. It's not about them. It's about the ball club. It's about the other coaches. It's almost, if you didn't know better, you would think that Stephen Vogt had coached under Tito or had played for Tito. They are both guys with a self-deprecating sense of humor. They're both guys that, things didn't come easy for them in the major leagues. Stephen didn't make it until he was 27. Tito was a superstar coming out of college and then blew his knee out in Montreal and never had the major league career that everybody envisioned. And so I think because of what they both went through, they can really relate not only to the star, but they can relate to the 26th man on a ball club. And that's hugely important. But the other thing I've really appreciated about Stephen is that he has been very quick to point out he inherited a great situation here because of how this club has been the last 11 years under Tito. They didn't just start playing the game hard this year. They've played it that way the last 11 years, which is why, guys, it's pretty remarkable in a market this size with one of the lowest payrolls in the game that this is 12 years in a row where the ball club has been a playoff contender. Maybe they don't get there every year, But you don't see this ball club losing 90 to 100 games 5 years in a row and then suddenly become a force. And so the thing I have learned the most about Stephen Vogt is that, and again, I didn't know him very well until he came here, but much like Tito, it's never about him. It's never about him, and that's refreshing.
Tom, you mentioned the rotation. Which name in the rotation needs to be better, like way better?
I'll name a guy that isn't here yet, Gavin Williams, who's been hurt all year long, who, along with Tanner Bybee, were two of the best rookie pitchers in baseball a year ago. He's making another rehab start tonight in Akron. I think he is our most important guy when you look ahead to the second half, even though he hasn't pitched here yet this year, because that's how dominant he can be. Whether or not they can go out and make a trade for somebody else. I mean, Ben Lively has been way beyond what you could have ever envisioned. The guy going tonight is 37 years old, so I don't know how much is left for Carlos Carrasco. If you were talking about a guy that's currently here that is not Gavin Williams, it would have to be Tristan McKenzie. He's just not been the same guy.
Tom, last question from us, and we will let you run. Bo Naylor, what are the Guardians? How do they plan on using him the rest of the year here? Because offensively, he has scuffled a bit.
Yeah, they've been really high on his catching. And I think everybody thought of him as a bat first catcher, and he has really, I think, improved defensively. I don't know. I don't keep these numbers, guys, but the other day, the game he caught, the charts that they look at, he stole 6 pitches for strikes, which is usually about 3 times more than if you can steal a couple of strikes a game, you're doing a heck of a job. As Stephen Vogt said, it's more important you don't lose strikes, pitches that were strikes that you maybe somehow took the ball out of the strike zone and it became a ball. I'm surprised he has struggled, guys, offensively, because he had such a good finish last year to his season. And, I don't know if he's put a little pressure on himself to replicate that. But we have 3 catchers. And because David Fry has swung the bat so well and has done a good job, tonight, for instance, Austin Hedges is catching and Bo is on the bench. But, he is still the guy they look to as their number one catcher here in the foreseeable future. But, he's trying to make some adjustments offensively. That's hard to do at this level, guys. And then play, and as you know, as a catcher, your biggest duty that day is to make the guy on the mound the best he can be. So the good thing is for Bo Naylor, his offensive struggles have not carried over for him defensively. Had that been the case, I don't know if he'd still be here right now. He might be back in the minor leagues, but he's done such a great job defensively that they're going to work through these offensive struggles.
Tom, really good of you to do this, my friend. Thanks so much.
You're the best,
Great
buddy.
to talk to you.
Thank you, Tom.
Guys. You bet. Have a good one.
You too. Thank you.
Tom Hamilton is the voice of the Guardian. 7:10 is the first pitch tonight. Yariel Rodriguez against Carlos Carrasco. That is interesting about Bo Naylor because when he did come up, the Guardians, and I remember talked to Bo as well, but the idea was that he was a bat first catcher.
Yeah.
And we've talked to Danny about that several times, just the workload that a catcher has and how hard it is for a catcher to kind of get caught up offensively when, it is the ultimate position where you got to separate, right?
Yeah.
It's the ultimate position.
Yeah,
you got to separate.
Yeah, and hitting's down everywhere. Like it's not, it's not the easiest time to ever hit. Yeah, I wouldn't think that's the, when do you go to batting cage? Like, when are you not with the pitcher trying to figure out how to get, Bo Bichette or Vladimir Guerrero
Especially
or
given
somebody
all
else.
the information you have right now.
Yeah, like it's a lot. I'm sure there's a lot of buttons being pushed, and then you forget to go hit balls off the tee and soft toss and those kind of things. So yeah, he's young enough. Be fortunate that I think that he's on a good team who's in first place who can afford to let you figure it out.
I think one of the things Tom mentioned us that maybe explains the Guardians' success is the way they play, and you've talked about this as well. Athleticism, quickness, put pressure on the other team, contact, good bullpen. That travels. Home and away. That's why that's going to travel.
I think their best players offensively are being their best players. They have the best bullpen in baseball. 2 reasons. That's what did Ross Atkins come into yelling and screaming about the begin the season with the Blue Jays? Their best players have to be their best players. They're not being that. The Guardians' best players are being that.
I'd forgotten that they have the first pick this year in the draft.
Yeah.
Too.
And Stephen Kwan, I mean, he gets on base all the time. Jays can't get him out.
No.
I don't know. That's going to be a handful. Like, he works counts. You don't get himself out. Like, you got to make quality pitches to him. You can't set him up. He can hit the elevated fastball. He can hit a secondary pitch. He can hit the ball the other way. He can pull velocity. And he's getting on in front of them two behemoths. It's not going to be the easiest thing. This, again, gets back to that Vladdy thing. I know we wear that out, but man alive. It's June. Let's go.
We're going to be joined in a few minutes by Melanie Newman, play-by-play broadcaster with the Baltimore Orioles. The Orioles laid down a bit of a marker in that series.
Best team in the American League.
17-5.
I'm going to keep taking that.
Thumping the New York Yankees.
Loss is a loss, but
17-5 is 17. And they beat the guy, Louis Seal, that everybody was saying.
They beat him. They did it in Yankee Stadium, too.
Yeah.
After their best player got hit in the rib.
After their best player, yes, exactly. We'll talk to Melanie about that. We've been giving you the chance to win Jays tickets all season long here on Blair and Barker. All you have to do is text the correct answer to our daily. Is a Grand Central station here?
For one guy.
Oh. All you have to do is text the correct answer to our daily baseball trivia question to 590-590. He's so thrilled with his trivia questions that he wants to be in here. Or Mark Boffo does. Yesterday's question, now he's leaving. When Derek Jeter hosted Saturday Night Live in 2001, he was joined by which two teammates who also played for the Jays in the famous Yankees Wives sketch? The answer was the Davids, David Cohn and David Wells. Our friend Jeff Passan. He told everybody that.
Good for
So
him.
you owe your tickets to Passan. Today's question is to win tickets to see the Jays and Yankees at Rogers Center on Saturday, June 29th. How I feel about this one. In 2008, this famous actor...
What about you?
In 2008, this famous actor and comedian lived out a lifelong dream by hitting leadoff as a member of the Yankees in a spring training game against the Pirates. Name him. In 2008, this famous actor and comedian, see, that's a giveaway, lived out a lifelong dream by hitting leadoff as a member of the Yankees in a spring training game against the Pirates. Name him. Text the answer to 590-590 for your shot to win. See rules at Sportsnet.
Could have been a couple of people.
I don't like that. It's the same thing when Will Ferrell went out. I don't like Will Ferrell to begin with. But when Will Ferrell went out and played, I don't like that.
Man.
I just don't.
You're like the fun police.
No, it's not the fun police.
The fun police.
No, I'm not a fan of
fun.
I'm not a fan of look at me. You're a movie star. You're a comedian.
Oh, I'm sure he's promoting something.
We know who you are. Go away. Stay away.
Do you have any
from
friends?
Our sports?
Do you have any friends?
I do.
Who?
A lot of people feel.
Name one.
David. Anyhow, in 2008, this famous actor and comedian lived out a lifelong dream by hitting leadoff as a member of the Yankees in a spring training game against the Pirates. Name him. You can text the answer to 590-590 for your shot to win. See rules at sportsnet.ca/590. His exit velo, as I remember, was not very
tremendous.
Good. Was not.
He's hitting clean over the Jays.
See, that's normally where I go.
I mean, it's an easy target. Isn't that what you say? It's an easy target.
416-413-3959 is the back leg line. We will go to the back leg line to wrap up the show after Melanie Newman joins us. 7:10 is the first pitch tonight. We are doing Blue Jays talk following the game. Just so you remember, I know that you tend to forget these things. Sometimes you fall asleep. I shouldn't have said that.
That's not true. That's not what happened.
Well, there was the one day we were worried about you. All we saw was the blank.
That's not what happened.
Camera.
You're lying again. Yeah. Well, you ain't afraid, are you? Throw grenades.
You had.
That's why I put you on
the legend. Tom Young and myself were a little concerned.
That's why
all we saw was because we have when we're doing it remote, we like to keep in touch with each other. So we have our Zoom camera set up, and Barker just disappeared, and it was like a test pattern, and we had to start Blue Jays talk, and I'm sitting there and can't see anything, and
I made it.
You guys try to get along, won't you?
Hey, that's why I put you on the hot train last night.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
That was a shout out to.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Took the train.
It was a
last
sauna.
time
It was a
I'm
straight
taking
sauna.
the train back with you.
It's a sauna.
10,000 cars in the train.
We picked the sauna.
Numbnuts over here picks the one that doesn't have any air conditioning. And then he wants to sit by the door where the heat.
Well, there's air.
Well, yeah,
through.
when the door is open.
And then I told that poor man that you get off the train the other way, and then he had to go to the next.
Guy missed his stop because Barker
That
told him
wasn't
to
my
walk
fault.
the wrong way. Barker, for those of you who don't, Barker is the guy. When you ask him directions to something,
mischievous.
he will not say to you, oh, I'm sorry, I have no idea. He'll say, no. You know what? You go down like 4 blocks that way, make a right, and then about another 4
you'll see
kilometers.
it, can't miss it.
Another 4 kilometers, you'll go through the roundabout. You can't miss it. There's a big, there's like a service station right in the corner there.
Eye popping.
So, yeah, he sent this guy the wrong way in the GO train.
And then the next stop, we saw him.
The next
We
stop,
saw him walking.
we see him walking by, and he's muttering, and it's pissing rain, of course, yesterday.
Boy.
That was actually, it was pretty funny.
Well, it's not my fault.
416-413-3959 is the back leg line.
Boy, you just ain't afraid to bust throw me, are
I'm
you?
not, man. You know me.
Gosh.
You know me, man.
It's like that at the end of this. I feel like the end of the season. Last year.
Anyhow, Melanie Newman will join us. Then we'll go to the back leg line. It's Blair and Barker, the bus throwing edition.
Oh, boy.
On Sportsnet 590, the fan of Sportsnet. All right, welcome back to Blair and Barker. It's a happy Friday.
Yeah,
edition
you're
of
making
Blair and
friends
Barker.
everywhere, Jeff. Everywhere.
We hope to be joined in a few minutes by Melanie Newman, play-by-play broadcaster with the Baltimore Orioles. The Orioles are taking on the Houston Astros after putting the boots to Mr. Barker's Yankees yesterday, 17-5. The Orioles have gone 22 consecutive series against AL East opponents without a series loss. It's the longest by a team within its own division. Since divisions were introduced in 1969, they've won 12 of their last 17.
The Orioles are starting to be talked about like their season doesn't start till October.
The Orioles, I will say this about...
Like the Dodgers, like the Yankees.
We talked a little bit
like the Astros most of the time.
Yeah, we talked a little bit with Passon yesterday about that.
He got mad at me.
He got mad at me. But, I mean, the fact of the matter is, they got a little bit of a swag about them, too, the Orioles now.
They got 2 really, really good players.
Hazel May is with the Toronto Blue Jays in Cleveland. A couple of updates from her. Jimmy Garcia is hoping to start playing catch tomorrow or Sunday. And Jordan Romano is throwing up to 120 feet again today. And hopefully will be off throwing off a mound this weekend. I'm trying to see if there's a Joey Votto update. And I have not seen a Joey Votto update.
Walking his way to the big league.
But I have to admit, I have not really worked that hard to find it. We can't put it any other way. 416-413. Well, I mean, he'll be here when he's here.
He'll be saving the season before you know it.
Bring him up in Canada Day. 416-413-3959 is the back leg line. Your chance to leave questions and comments. For Kevin, do you folks down there, should we go to the back leg line while we wait for Melanie? Or, I mean, I'm good either way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not hearing anything from anybody. The Ariel Rodriguez starts tonight against Carlos Carrasco. And as we mentioned, Jose Barrios goes in the second game against Ben Lively. Yusei Kikuchi against Tristan McKenzie. Yes. Orelvis Martinez is in the lineup. He's playing second base. And he is hitting 8th. And yes, George Springer is in the lineup.
The only thing I heard about
Addison Barger at third base. Yes.
The only thing I heard about Orelvis was he can hit a fastball. How many times you think John's ever said that about multiple people in his lineup? It's rare. So that's what we want. We want to see him destroying fastballs. Identity. Everybody's yelling and screaming about that offense having an identity.
I'm not.
You know where it starts?
I'm not. There's no such thing.
Singing Back Leg City.
Get it ready. Get the foot down early.
There it is.
This
boy.
whole
It's coming.
this whole thing about identity is
15. They have one.
It's a hockey.
It is not.
It
is not. Ask any catcher that faced those teams for the Blue Jays that are really good. They all say the same thing. Can't throw the fastball by them. You better be real good at setting that spinner up. Because if you don't, It's going to be a long day. Why do you think all them managers and them khakis weren't bringing them lefties in to face them 15 and 16
It's not an
teams?
identity.
Absolutely,
it's a
it is.
collection of skill sets.
Well, that's what it is. It's the same thing. It's the fear factor of, buddy, that velocity ain't going to work here.
All right, let's go to Taylor in Kitchener.
You ain't buying it.
Go to Taylor in Kitchener.
I wanted to just comment on the whole Orelvis Martinez thing. Again, maybe at this point when this is airing, you've seen the lineup and he's in the lineup, but him being our number one hitting prospect, you bring him up, and I know Barker, you've talked about this, but could you imagine if when they brought up Bo and Vladdy, if the first few games that they were up, they sat on the bench? Now I know Vladdy was a number one prospect in all of baseball. Bo, I'm not sure where he fell in that. I apologize for not doing my research, but could you imagine if they called these guys up? And I think I remember when Vladdy came up, it was mid-season, and, he's in the lineup, right? I know he got pinch hit for, I think, in his first game, but he was in there the first game, whether it was, he was tired because he got in at 6 p.m. These guys are kids, man. They can handle it. Jeff maybe can't handle it anymore. I'm not sure, but hey, these kids, they should be able to play. What do we got to lose here? Play the kid. The other thing is, like, having Ernie and these guys on the bench is absolutely absurd for a team that's so matchup driven. You think they would match up the guys that have been hitting everybody and everything the last couple of weeks. To me, there's got to be changes, and they got to start to happen.
I didn't like the way that ended. Did he go on to say something really inflammatory?
Somebody's getting fired. Multiple people. And he likes doing it.
Oh, that's Gary in Vancouver that wants to fire everybody because he likes doing it because his dad fired everybody.
I think they're telling you something about Orelvis without telling you.
Well,
Here's
the thing. He is the...
and they don't want to hurt the everyday guy's feelings.
Yeah, one thing is he's not... He is their position prospect closest to the majors. I think if you asked a lot of people, Arjun Namala is the top hitting prospect in this organization. But that's just, that's
arguable.
That's splitting hairs. Well, I know. I think more people. Well, you'll see when the rankings come out. I think that people will have him ahead of Orelvis Martinez. I mean, we're talking about minor. We're talking about minor league rankings. But I mean, your point is well made. The other thing you have to remember too is both Vladdy and Bo were much, much, much more advanced than Orelvis Martinez was in terms of their skill set, in terms of their ability to handle different pitches. I mean, all the things. Think back of what the offensive strengths of Vladdy and Bo were when they came up. Nobody's saying that about Martinez. Orelvis Martinez can handle the fastball. Okay. But Vladdy and Bo, people talked more about their ability to cover all quadrants of the plate. Of course, Vladdy came up with the whole, he's Vladdy Jr. and just like Vladdy Sr., he could hit home runs and balls that bounced in the dirt, all the stuff. And we forgot that Vladdy was actually pretty selective when he came up. But this is... And also, and here's the other thing, too. And this is, I think this gets to Taylor's point. People were excited because Vladdy and Bo were coming up and they were going to be the cornerstones of a bright future. Mm-hmm. Now, Orelvis Martinez has come up and it's kind of the dying embers of that future that never was. People feel differently about this team now than they did when Bo and Vladdy came up.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Yeah.
Just is.
Yeah.
And, that's one of the things you have to... I understand this is not a universal point of view, and Kevin, you don't agree with me, but I do think there is something about bringing a guy up into a bad situation that is different than bringing a prospect up into a positive, happy, competitive situation. But if quite honestly, if the Jays were in first place right now and Bo had been hurt and they were bringing Orelvis up, we'd be looking at
this. Is what I think. I think the 22-year-old Orelvis Martinez has no idea that the Blue Jays are whatever they are in the rankings.
I think he probably knows.
They don't. Trust me, they don't.
Oh, I think he knows.
I got caught up when they stunk too with the Brewers. I had no idea where they were in the standings. I could care less.
I think that's
the only thing I knew was I was in the big leagues and I was wearing a uniform that actually fit. That's the only thing I cared about. I was fired up. Couldn't wait to play. 22-year-olds, Jeff, could care less. Like I'm serious. What was I called when I was 24? I think 22. I mean, I was probably not ready at 22. 24, I was ready, raring and ready to go. Again, I could care less if the Brewers would have been 47 games under 500. Make no difference to me.
Let's go to Mitch in Toronto.
I was just wondering if you think there's any real prospects for a big name bat to sign in the offseason, particularly with Atkins and this regime still here. If this is the place that free agents come for their offense to die, like our system just grinds the humanity out of the players. Like Chapman was good the second year for April, and then his offense cratered. Turner's offense cratered. Merrifield was good till the All-Star break, and then his offense cratered. Like, why would a free agent sign here if their numbers are just going to tank?
Yeah.
That's my question. And then just a comment on Joey Votto. If I was Joey Votto, I'd be doing a lot of deep sea fishing down in Florida, taking it easy, maybe until late. Maybe this was what he was doing, taking it easy until late July, August. Come in at the end of the year when we're already out of the race. Have a good, strong, short season, farewell tour. And who knows? Maybe if we go on a late run to get into the playoffs, then he's part of the solution. But why would he come here now with and put all sorts of pressure on himself?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much pressure Joey Votto's going to put on himself.
I mean, you got that much big league time. You should know how to handle pressure.
I think
it's like the George Springer putting too much pressure. They've been around too long.
Joey's got a plan. Joey's got a plan.
Obviously, he's got something.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a plan. I don't pretend to know what it is, but he's got a plan.
Yeah, sounds like.
And clearly, the organization seems to be okay with it. So, whatever. Victory. I'm not a fan of victory laps because I remember Omar Vizquel's victory lap here was just awful. Like, I mean, he cost him. He was just. He was not a good team. All I'm going to say is not a good teammate. Hey, he was barely a teammate. Half the time he didn't show up here till game was just about to start. So anyhow, I'm not a fan of victory laps. Joey Votto's a little different, Canadian. I get all that, but only Joey knows whether he wants to keep playing. I just don't. I don't know what his plan is. As far as free agents go, the old rules apply. If they're going to give a free agent 2 more years and $60 million more than every other team, they'll come to Toronto. Now, I'm looking at the free agent hitters, though. This is just, and again, these are guys who, haven't exercised player options, yada, yada, have player options, et cetera, et cetera. Juan Soto, Cody Bellinger, he has an opt-out. Paul Goldschmidt, Teoscar, Pete Alonso, Alex Bregman. I got to think now. You're talking about free agents. If I'm Alex Bregman and I'm having difficulty with my power numbers in Houston, I'm probably looking at the Rogers Center going, not a chance.
Yeah, the Jays are the only team who can't hit a home run at the Rogers Center. Everybody else hitting.
Well, that's fair. But if you join the team as a member of the Jays,
that Duran kid hit a ball over the flight deck.
Anthony Rizzo,
it's like it's big.
Michael Conforto, Matt Chapman, Rhys Hoskins. I'll say this. I mean, if this team wants to rebuild, they're going to have to trade their way into a rebuild. They're going to have to or into a retool.
Yeah.
They're going to have to draft better. And I think what you do with the free agent money, this is just me, I think you go out and you spend it on pitchers because you can go out and buy guys and say, hey, you know what? And this is one thing Ross Atkins has done. I completely get this. Go out and sign guys that have already had their first or second Tommy John surgery, guys who are going to look at the Rogers Center and go, oh, maybe I can come here and have some success. That's what I do. I build my lineup around homegrown, younger guys or guys I've traded for. And then if I have to add a finishing touch as a free agent, then I give some guy $9 million to come here and be a finishing touch.
Sounds like fourth place.
But I spend my money on
Sounds like fourth place.
Well,
it does.
You've got better. You got a better idea.
Oh yeah, I get better at hitting. Figure it out. I mean, you've had 2 off seasons to figure. They got a blueprint on the pitching side of it.
We're talking about free agents.
Well, figure out they need better offensive players, Jeff.
All right. We're very pleased at this time to be joined by Melanie Newman. She is a play-by-play broadcaster with the Baltimore Orioles. The Orioles are taking on the Houston Astros. Melanie, thanks so much for joining us on Blair and Barker today. So, look, we know we have a lot of respect for the Orioles. My friend, Mr. Barker over here, is now convinced that they're the best team in the American League. We saw them firsthand, so we know all about that. But I have to ask you, Melanie, what they went through this week, pounding the Yankees, first of all, in that final game, but more to the point, the whole thing with Judge, Gunnar Henderson being hit by the pitch, putting his head down, going to first base. It seems to me as if, I came away from that series watching it from a distance thinking, man, these guys, not only are they really good, but they've matured into a team that knows they're really good and kind of knows how to, how to walk the walk in addition to talk the talk.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. And first of all, thank you for giving this team some respect, because it still seems they are somehow getting looked over even after the onslaught that they have put on. But you're absolutely right. The emotional maturity is there. You single out Gunnar Anderson in particular. What a lot of people wanted to gloss over with this trip to New York was the fact how many times the Yankees were hitting Orioles batters when they came to Baltimore just a month prior. Gunnar Henderson has a leadoff home run, and his very next at-bat is 96 up and in on the hands. And he didn't get mad. There were no headlines about it. There was no name-calling involved. He just turned the page. And I actually got a chance to talk to him about that earlier today. And he said, it does me no benefit if I'm going to get mad, if I get emotional. I'm going to get outside of my game and what I do best by letting them win, by letting them get the best of me and getting a reaction out of me. And that's the way he's been his whole life. This is a kid, we asked him what it was like growing up, if he has a lot of high school buddies that, try to come to games. And he admitted he didn't really have a ton of friends in high school because he didn't go out and party. He wasn't into that environment. And he very bluntly said, I knew I had a major league career in front of me. Why am I going to go mess it up? A kid is 16 with that kind of spatial awareness, that kind of foresight into his future. I'm impressed every single day by him. I think he's going to be a special talent for the next decade plus to come. But watching the way that they go about it, the brotherhood that they have really, really formed, it's no surprise to me at this point.
Melanie, we know the superstars they have on their team, but is there a lunch pail guy that we don't talk about enough that the Orioles can't do without?
I mean, it's all of them, really.
Yeah.
And I know the stars get their credit, and I feel like Jordan Westburg is finally starting to come out. And if I could single in on two, it's probably on the corners. It's Jordan Westburg, it's Ryan O'Hearn, and really even Ramon Urias. Urias is in the middle of a 7-game hit streak. And this is a guy who is a Gold Glove third baseman, and he's fighting for playing time right now, which just tells you how fortunate they are to have this current roster. But Westburg is the same blue-nosed, hard, gritty kind of guy. And the way that they all feed off of each other, Westburg came a little more upright in his batting stance because that's how Gunnar hits. And they identified enough similarities there that would also benefit Westburg. And conversely, Gunnar has been learning from Jordan to just that emotional middle line, not getting too high, not getting too low. You'll still see Gunnar get upset with himself, if he grounds out instead of picking up a hit. But Jordan's done a lot to rub off on him in that category. And the turnaround that Ryan O'Hearn has made from being a DFA'd player on a non-competitive Kansas City Royals team to showing you if he gets those daily reps, especially stepping up and losing Ryan Mountcastle last year, this guy can crush the baseball. I mean, he came up with Heston Kjerstad's older brother in college. He's around a very strongly minded offensive group, but his attitude towards it, he knows he's had a second chance here, and the gratitude that he shows for saying, I was a bench player on a non-competitive team, and now I get to be here. He's not going to let go of this for anything. But those would be my three for sure.
Melanie, I think they're a borderline great team, but they might need to go out and get a number 2 starter and maybe an 8th or 9th inning guy. Do you get the feel the front office is all in? I would think all in means that you would have to give up more than pieces to get what you need to make a serious run in October. Like going to Yankee Stadium in October is not going to be the easiest thing, but it might be easier with another 8th or 9th inning guy and a number 2 starter. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, listen, you look at what the Orioles were able to accomplish this series. They didn't have one starter who finished 5 innings of work. 3 2/3, 4 2/3, 4 2/3, and they took 2 out of 3. That doesn't happen. That is such an anomaly in this game, but that also means you are taxing your bullpen. These guys have done their best to carry this load, even though they have lost big guys. John Means, Kyle Bradish going down. You're hoping Dean Kramer comes back soon. He has another minor league rehab appearance tomorrow. But you're right. We got to talk to General Manager Mike Elias about this, and that's exactly what he spoke to, is they're always going to keep an eye on the market. They also acknowledge, though, what they want is what everybody wants all of the time. And so keeping the eyes on the future, not being willing to give up that blueprint for what keeps you with an open door and not just a window in the playoffs, but really that perennial chance to be there. I mean, it's funny that we're in Houston because we look at the powerhouse that he built here and how consistent they are at being in the playoffs. That's what he's doing in Baltimore. So we know that they've got eyes on starters, and we're already starting to hear those picks like Nick Pivetta, Garrett Crochet, but it comes down to price tag, and I think that's something that they're definitely going to be vigilant with moving forward. But they have let us know that, you know, they're talking, they're looking, they're always engaging, and especially in light of what's happened.
Mm-hmm. You know, Melanie, a player that Kevin and I spend a great deal of time talking about whenever the Orioles come into town is Anthony Santander, for a variety of reasons. I mean, I'm looking at this guy this month. He's got 10 home runs this month. That leads MLB. I mean, my goodness, he's a switch hitting power hitter. Do you see any world in which the Orioles bring him back next year?
You know, it's funny because he was such a big piece of this rebuild and this process, and he's so often regarded as one of the best Rule 5 pickups that the game has seen in quite some time. And he's such a light, you know. We don't talk about that enough, but those pieces that you don't really pay for are how they are in the dugout, how they are around the team on a daily basis. He's that energy guy. But I don't know. It's where I feel really lucky that I'm not one of the executives for the Orioles making those decisions, because you do keep that in mind, that he has been such a huge piece for you, as has Cedric Mullins and Austin Hayes. But you also know you've got some big dogs who stay knocking on the door. I mean, the rotation that keeps coming up from AAA, we've already seen Heston Kjerstad come up and go back down. Kyle Stowers is already back down. Ryan McKenna has already had to depart because they ran out of options for him to be a part of this organization. It's a really lucky situation to have, but it does leave those moments where it feels like a razor-thin margin of, you know, do they stay, do they go, and who's the answer if they do go?
I wanted to shift focus a little bit, Melanie, and ask you about your experience in London with the London series. I know that you got to call it for the BBC. What was that like, calling a sport, knowing that, you know, a lot of people who were listening, frankly, may not be, you know, totally immersed in the baseball lingo and in baseball culture?
Yeah, so you know what, it's funny because it's my third year with the BBC, and this initially started out doing some remote games here from the States. We've had guys like C.C. Sabathia, Xavier Scruggs, Ryan Rowland-Smith. They've all stepped in and been a part of this. Honestly, it's been one of the most enjoyable products that I have ever been asked to be a part of. They're eager to learn the sport. They love seeing it. What's crazy is because of this opportunity, I really went down the rabbit hole in the history of these two and everything that goes on with that. And at one point in time, if you could believe it, baseball and cricket were evenly shared in North America and the United Kingdom up until the Civil War. And at that point, obviously teams stopped traveling internationally to continue sharing these sports, and they went in two different directions. Cricket took off in the UK, and baseball really found its home here in the States to become the national pastime. And so you watch new people come into the game. I think we do a good job of Felix White as our British analyst. He is a part of multiple super successful musical groups, and quit going out at night. And what's on your TV at 2 a.m? It's American baseball because of the time difference. And he fell in love with it. And he's so poetic with the way he talks about it. But he also keeps that good eye on us not getting in the weeds. And if we do explain something, okay, well, what does that mean for the common fan? And I think we do a good job of breaking that down in a way that's not patronizing, that doesn't speak down to an audience, because we do recognize it's a gift when you get to share your life's work, the sport that you've dedicated everything to, with a new audience and with an international audience. And I think the Phillies and Mets did a really great job with it. They immersed themselves in the city. They were out at historical sites. They went to, a big Phillies bar in Passyunk, and we heard louder crowds, way more than even what we saw last year with the Cubs and Cardinals. And so it's encouraging to see it grow moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Melanie, really good of you to join us today. Appreciate it. I know you've got a game to prep for. Yeah. We really appreciate this. Thanks so much. Great to talk to you.
It's awesome.
Guys, can't wait to see you in a month.
Absolutely. Be well.
See ya.
Travel safely. That's Melanie Newman.
Awesome.
The terrific Melanie Newman, play-by-play broadcaster of the Baltimore Orioles and BBC. I listened to a bit of the BBC coverage. It was really good.
Yep.
I'm not surprised.
Mm-hmm.
Beeb does things well.
Yep.
But, yeah, it was interesting, the whole tie-in. And, of course, at the same time that baseball was being played in the UK, the T20 cricket was being played over in North America.
Yeah.
All right. That kind of went by quickly.
Flew by.
It really did. 7:10 is the first pitch tonight from Cleveland. Weather looks fine, I do believe. It'll be Yariel Rodriguez against Carlos Carrasco. We'll be along following the game with Blue Jays talk on the Sportsnet radio network. We'll be back, of course, Monday from 4 to 6 Eastern right here on Sportsnet 590 The Fan and Sportsnet. Before we go today, wanted to give a special shout-out to a member of our team here who is leaving us after 21 years, working behind the scenes as one of our board ops, one of our technical directors. His name is Lance Kennedy. And I know I saw Sid Sixero tweeted out a picture of Lance and had some nice words about Lance. Mm-hmm. And I think the station sent out a shot as well. And I chimed in on Twitter and said, Lance, has worked with all 3,332,465 different hosts that we've had in the station over the course of 25 or 21 years. And that means Lance has had to put up with an inordinate amount of BS. I mean, it just does. And anybody who works here that long and works with the idiots that have been on air has had to put up with a ton of stuff. And yes, I include myself in it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think Lance has worked, I don't know, I've worked in like 38 different time slots in this show. I think Lance has worked in 36 of them. Anybody who's been in the air here at some point has worked with Lance.
Yep.
And relied on Lance. And Lance has always been kind of the very quiet, very steady dude who just went about his business, made sure everything worked.
Yep. He'll be missed.
He will be missed. Yeah. He's a big part of what we do here. He has been a big part of what we do here. And I just want to wish him all the best in his future endeavors. It's been a lot of fun working with him. It's been a lot of fun spending time with him. And as I said, he has been not just a valued team member. He's been a really special team member. So, Lance, I'm sure you probably aren't getting ready to go for a run today because it's ungodly hot. But whatever you're doing, it's been great having you here. And don't be a stranger, my friend. That's it for us. Again, 7:10 is the first pitch tonight from Cleveland. It is the Jays and the Guardians. Thanks for joining us on Blair and Barker right here on Sportsnet 590 The Fan and Sportsnet.